Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Are you guys visiting? And yeah, for 10 days. Okay, for 10 days.
You're welcome, have a great day.
A Whistler ER doctor calls for a travel ban after seeing a worrying number of patients from Quebec and Ontario. Also,
they've essentially benefited from $100,000 of taxpayer monies.
a Langley councillor says churches breaking COVID-19 rules should lose their property tax grants. And
there has never been a greater portrayal by a president of the United States of his office and his oath to the Constitution.
Donald Trump becomes the first president to be impeached.
Would never have happened
for a second time.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Whistler, where an emergency room doctor is calling on the BC government to restrict travel from other provinces. Over the holidays, she says she saw a worrying number of patients from Quebec and Ontario. As Bethany Lindsay reports, doctors aren't the only ones worried about the small community's healthcare system being overwhelmed.
Have a great day.
It was a busy holiday season in Whistler. Some days, the waiting room at the local medical clinic was nearly full.
I would say the majority of patients that came to the clinic between Christmas and New Year were not Whistlerites. The majority were from the lower mainland, and then surprising and worrying was a lot of people from out of province, mainly Ontario and Quebec.
There are no rules against flying across the country. BC health officials are only advising against non-essential travel, saying skiers should stick to their local slopes. But Garreau wants stricter rules.
I think we need to do like the Atlantic provinces did, and I think we need to restrict interprovincial travel until the numbers are going down.
Tourism Whistler says interprovincial travel is down, but people from outside BC still account for about 10% of overnight guests. Some locals are frustrated, and they've even confronted tourists from other provinces.
I asked them directly, are you guys visiting? And yeah, for 10 days. Okay, for 10 days. And then he answered me that in Quebec, there's more cases than BC. So we are better here. Okay, so then after that, I couldn't say anything else. There was really, it was hard to say anything.
BC's health ministry hasn't responded to calls for stricter rules, but locals worry about what will happen if Whistler has an outbreak.
COVID doesn't take holiday, and then if it does spread into our small community in Whistler, it will be problematic because we don't have the capability to absorb a big number of COVID-positive patients.
Bethany Lindsay, CBC News, Vancouver.
Those concerns in Whistler come as case numbers outside of the Lower Mainland continue to rise. Sadly, another 12 people have died from COVID-19 in BC. Our province's death toll has now reached 1,031. 519 more people have tested positive for the virus. BC is now just under 60,000 total cases and will likely cross that threshold tomorrow. There are 360 people in hospital tonight, 76 of those patients in intensive care. There are just over 4,800 active cases. That's the fewest since November 9th. However, there are 1,584 active cases in Northern, Interior, and on Island Health, more than Vancouver Coastal Health, and trending towards surpassing Fraser Health. Meanwhile, Interior Health has declared a COVID-19 outbreak at Caribou Memorial Hospital in Williams Lake. 4 staff members have tested positive there, but officials say there's no evidence of patient exposure related to this outbreak. The health authority says a team is on site to ensure safety protocols and wants to ensure the community it's safe to go to the hospital for medical help. This is now the 12th active outbreak in a BC hospital. The province says it has now used up virtually all the COVID-19 vaccine it has received so far. Health Minister Adrian Dix says thousands more doses are arriving in the coming days and will go to those who need it most. As Justin McElroy reports, questions still remain, though, about the vaccine rollout and when the majority of British Columbians can expect to get a shot.
The BC government provided new news today on its vaccination strategy, but the big question most people will have when they can get it is still yet to be known for most. What was found out today is Dr. Penny Ballem, the former Deputy Health Minister, former City Manager of Vancouver, and current Chair of Vancouver Coastal Health, will be in charge of the province's immunization strategy going forward. Now, what that looks like for most people, it'll be a couple months until things scale up. Currently, just over 60,000 British Columbians have gotten one vaccine shot. There will be approximately 400 doses, just over that, available in the province by the end of February. By the end of March, that number will go to just under 800,000. But there are over 5 million British Columbians in this province. So it's expected during the spring and early summer, those numbers will increase dramatically. But for people wondering about the process, there's two big steps first that we need to find out. One is whether the Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccines are effective in a large-scale community setting rather than a clinical trial, something that's being found out all around the world right now. The second is whether the two vaccines that are currently under approval by Health Canada, the Janssen by Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca, do get approved. If those two things go according to plan, then British Columbians should start to know sometime in the next month when they will be up for a vaccine. Hopefully for most, it will be in the late spring or early summer rather than the late summer or early fall, but still a lot for people to figure out. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
And Health Minister Adrian Dix is publicly criticizing the actions of some Vancouver area doctors who jumped the queue to get a second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
I'll just say bluntly that I'm very, very disappointed in what's happened.
Dix says everyone is expected to follow the rules when it comes to the priority list, which governs the immunization rollout. Vaccines administered through Coastal Health are tracked through a provincial database. The doctors who skipped the line were found out through a system review. Provincial health officials call the queue jumping issue serious, but not widespread. A large part of northwestern BC has been left without an important service in the new year. No body pickup services for sudden deaths. The BC Coroner Service has confirmed there's a service gap after a switch in contracts there. For now, BC ambulances are fitting in the work of transferring bodies in cases of sudden death between medical calls. The affected communities are between Prince Rupert, Terrace, Smithers, and Burns Lake. This comes as Northern Health Services struggle to deal with morgue capacity. A backup morgue truck was brought into Mills Memorial Hospital to handle the number of bodies there. The coroner's office is hoping to find a solution within days. Air Canada is suspending all flights out of 2 BC cities. Starting January 23rd, Prince Rupert and Kamloops will no longer be serviced by the airline. The mayor of Kamloops says it's beyond disappointing, as the Air Canada flights are the city's only direct air connection to Vancouver. Kamloops airport officials say they've seen an 85% reduction in service for this time of year. The pandemic-based cuts also affect 1,700 Air Canada employees across the country. Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou was back in court today, where it was revealed that the Vancouver police investigated a series of threats against her. As Jason Proctor reports tonight, those details emerged at a hearing to vary Meng's bail conditions as she awaits extradition proceedings.
The judge in the case has reserved his decision. Now, what Meng Wanzhou is asking for here is to loosen the terms of her bail conditions. At the moment, she's required to have a security detail with her at all times, including during daylight hours while she travels around the Lower Mainland. That means she's got 3 security guards with her everywhere she goes, and she says she's a cancer survivor and she also suffers from hypertension. And so because there's a changing roster to that guard detail, she is at heightened risk of catching COVID-19. Now, the president of the security firm that provides the detail testified in court today. He said he actually thinks she's at greater risk than ever in terms of some foreign government perhaps extracting her from Canada before these proceedings are done. or through something he cited today, the first of an incident we are hearing throughout this case, which is that threatening letters were sent to Meng Wanzhou's home last summer, about 5 or 6, some containing bullets, and that incident was investigated by the Vancouver police. The CEO of the security firm was one of the sureties who actually signed off on her bail. He put $1,000 up. He says he won't put that same money up if these terms are released. So the defense says, in fact, that the conditions have changed here since the 25 months ago when she was first arrested, and that she can be trusted. She's shown she can be trusted. The Crown, on the other hand, says she is still a flight risk. She faces a heavy sentence if she's sent to the United States. She has a lot of money, and she has the means to get out of Canada if she wants. The judge has that decision to make, and he is expected to deliver that decision on January 29th. Jason Proctor, CBC News, Vancouver.
An alleged road rage incident that led to 2 people being pepper sprayed has police asking for the public's help.
Unfortunately, the victims were quite shocked, but what they did tell us is that he was quite friendly. So they don't remember everything that was said, but he said something about being cut off, and then surprised them with the pepper spray.
This happened on December 29th and possibly stemmed from a lane change earlier in the day. The suspect was wearing a black hoodie with the phrase, "You dream it, we build it," on the back. Police believe the slogan could belong to a company either locally or out of town. The suspect ultimately fled in a white truck. Police say it's concerning that the suspect took the time to choose such a violent response. Tens of thousands of BC Hydro customers are in the dark tonight after a windstorm whipped across our province. It sent trees tumbling and made a lot of mess for crews to clean up. Our Dan Burrett joins us now with a survey of the damage. Dan.
Mike, you know it's a mighty wind when a boat goes airborne. Take a look. Some people in Saskatchewan, north of Victoria, woke up to this after the overnight windstorm. The owner wondered if his canoe had been stolen before looking up. They managed to bring the boat down unscathed.
Only damage done was to our egos, I guess. I fell off my stepladder because we kind of lost control of the canoe as it was coming down, and so I landed on my butt. But
you okay?
Oh yeah.
Minor
injuries. Yeah.
Like a stepladder. Trees and cars suffered major damage after the wind ripped down branches and tore up roots, as you can see. This is in East Vancouver. Several vehicles were smashed on Price Street, I should say. Gusts hit 91 kilometers an hour at YVR, the highest recorded at the airport in January since 2007. Meanwhile, the wind hit 100 kilometers an hour in Victoria and the eastern Fraser Valley. It brought down trees and power lines all across the island and the Gulf Islands. At its peak, BC Hydro says more than 200,000 customers were without electricity. As of 5 p.m., crews had restored power to all but about 30,000 customers, most of them here on the Lower Mainland, on the island, the Gulf Islands, and the southern interior. Hydro says it expects most people will have their lights on by tonight, but a few pockets may be out overnight, and we'll have the latest tonight at 11. Mike.
Dan Burrett reporting live tonight. Thanks. All right, let's bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe now. A canoe lifting windstorm on the coast. The winds had died down, of course, and it turned out to be a nice day.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous day today, Mike. Behind the front often is clearing skies and easing winds, and we get to keep the clear skies for more than 24 hours, keeping the sunshine through tomorrow's forecast. But as we heard from Dan, it was a very breezy day, an overnight period. I'm still tracking that cold front. I want to show you where it is on the satellite and radar. It's moving across the prairies right now, so the back end of that front still bringing winter conditions to the interior tonight. A couple of fronts actually hopping the Rockies, so we're seeing blizzard conditions in place east of the Rockies. That front, by the way, I know we were talking about a lot of those peak wind gusts and peak power outages. Actually seen some records for YVR winds, 91 kilometers per hour at YVR. That was the windiest January since 2007, and our windiest day in general for the airport in a couple of years. Hope Airport actually got knocked out after reporting a 100-kilometer-per-hour gust, and then I have not seen it report data since then. So I'll keep my eye on that weather station and on the generally nice weather that is coming. We get to keep the high pressure, as I mentioned, through Thursday, but there is rain in the forecast. In fact, this time tomorrow, it could be knocking on our door, so I'll time out that next front coming up.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Talk to you again in a little bit. Well, the pandemic has seen an increase in need at local food banks. And thanks to a grant, a Surrey food hamper service will be able to continue its supporting of their community.
I can't imagine somebody who's got their cupboards empty in the first place. Now they've lost their job. They don't know where the next meal's coming from. And now they're in a pandemic. And it's just the stress is huge.
A $20,000 grant has been given to the City Dream Center. They're distributing about 1,000 hampers bi-weekly right now. Hampers are given to low-income families and seniors in need of support. The organization says they've also been in touch with the Surrey School Board to help families of students in need as well. Well, maybe a few months later than fans had hoped, but the 2021 NHL season is officially underway tonight.
This is their chance to prove that they don't need it. I expect it to have good tempo, maybe a little...
The puck dropped tonight for the brand new Canadian division. Montreal and Toronto renewing their rivalry in one of the two North Division games. And ahead of their season opener tonight, the Vancouver Canucks will be without two players because of COVID-19 safety protocols. They are among the 22 players announced league-wide who are being held out as a precaution. As Aaron Collins reports, that's unsettling news for people living in cities where the games are being played.
It almost looks normal. The Canucks and Habs hitting the road, hopping flights to Toronto and Edmonton to kick off the NHL season. Of course, the masks give it away. These days, the business of pro hockey is anything but normal.
Obviously, it's going to be a very different year. Be a lot of different things to deal with that you never had to deal with before.
Those changes easy to see. Face coverings and COVID tests now as much a part of the game as power plays and slap shots. Canadian teams will only play in Canadian cities, but will it all be enough? And is it worth the risk as hospitals across the country fill up?
It doesn't sound like a big deal, but if each of these cities generates even 2 ICU cases out of hockey activity, we don't have the room.
Well, they've ditched the bubble and outbreaks are already happening. 17 players from the Dallas Stars have COVID-19.
Going to work, spinning!
The NBA has been back in action for almost a month, and the league has seen a surge in cases, even forcing one game to be canceled last weekend. But the NHL says trust the process.
It makes you feel really safe because you know each and every guy next to you is getting tested every day. You know that each guy, you can count on the guy next to you to be following protocols.
Of course, not all businesses are allowed to get up and running today. Tonight's season openers won't be on at this Calgary bar, closed for weeks due to COVID. But that doesn't mean the owner wants hockey shut down too.
It's 100% of our bottom line. It really is. At this location, it is. We have so many sports fans that come in and watch sports and want to be here to watch sports because we have so many TVs to watch it on.
For better or for worse, the NHL is back on the ice in Canada, about to embark on the strangest of seasons, one without fans in their buildings and hopefully without COVID outbreaks in them either. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
And some sad news from the sports world tonight. 3-time Olympic Canadian rowing champion Kathleen Heddle has died of cancer. The BC native won Olympic gold medals in 1992 and 96 with Marnie McBean as her partner in the coxless pair and double sculls. She also earned gold with the women's 8 team in 92 as well. Heddle battled breast and lymph node cancer followed by melanoma and brain cancer for 6 years. She died on Monday in her home in Vancouver at the age of 55. And a reminder, if you aren't already, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Donald Trump has become the first U.S. president to be impeached for a second time. What he's saying about the historic decision by the House of Representatives next. And thanks for staying with us tonight during our commercial-free live stream. Well, a town in Halifax is installing bike repair stations along rails to trails. As Colleen Jones explains, they're hoping the new infrastructure creates a cycling community and makes more people think of active transportation.
This is the Centennial Trail. It's an 8-kilometer stretch, and it winds its way along the beautiful LaHave River. I'm biking to meet Diana Johnson, the recreation coordinator for Bridgewater. The town has installed 3 of 5 bike repair stations.
If these little infrastructure devices can encourage or give someone the confidence to get out on their bike because they know that they can, if they have an issue to repair, that they have these stations to stop at. And I guess in the end, that meets our goal of getting people to use different modes of transportation instead of a car. Situate your bike so that this crossbar sits on top of these. They're padded, so it's not going to scratch your bike.
No different than a gas station for a car, a bike repair station allows a cyclist to make minor fixes if something goes wrong.
Help putting your chain back on. This is at the perfect level to be able to do that. And then if you have to fix something more intricate, you have your tools. You're going to venture out on this orange part, which is our Centennial Trail.
Diana sends me off to find the other stations scattered along the trail.
Our bike stations are located at this point, and then way over on this point. We've been just designated part of the Great Trail of Canada, so part of that western loop. So eventually, the goal is that you'll go through all these little trails across the western half of the province and be able to stop in communities and just continue on.
The trail is a gem, not just riding past beautiful waterfalls, but this restored railway bridge, well, it's a highlight. Now, while the goal is to get people in Bridgewater out riding, as cycling tourism grows around the province, they hope something as simple as a bike repair station will be a message to people that they won't be stranded if their bike breaks down.
If this encourages even just a few people to get out, come investigate what they're about on their bikes, or even just get out on the trail, again, knowing that this facility is here for them, we've achieved success.
Here's hoping you never have a mechanical breakdown on your ride, but if you do, there's help. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Bridgewater.
Good idea. All right, back in just a few seconds. We'll have more on that stay-at-home order in Ontario and with more details on the vote to impeach U.S. President Donald Trump for the second time. For now, enjoy the view of downtown Vancouver. Donald Trump has been impeached again, becoming the first U.S. president to earn that rebuke twice. Our Susan Ormiston has more on what it all means with just 1 week until Joe Biden's inauguration.
He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation.
Trump was baselessly and deliberately whipping his supporters into a frenzy.
This is our capital! One after another, Democrats castigated the president for inciting an insurrection.
Are you on the side of chaos and the mob, or on the side of constitutional democracy and our freedom? It's that simple.
Not that simple, though, for Republicans, a majority who returned to the theme of Trump the target.
Now it's impeachment round 2. It's always been about getting the president, no matter what.
The craving to crush President Trump has never been satisfied.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
But in the end, 10 Republicans did vote to impeach, a record number voting against their party.
1 week ago, this hall was filled with violent rioters with lightning speed. The House has voted to impeach Donald Trump again, but his trial won't come until after he leaves the White House. And it will take many more Republicans, including perhaps a nod from Mitch McConnell, to convict and assure that Trump could never run for office again.
This is what the end result is.
About a year ago, Trump boasted the party loved him. He was acquitted of impeachment and nothing could stop him. So dramatically different now. He's lost, isolated, and facing a trial that could go against him. Tonight, Trump belatedly calling for calm.
No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence.
Washington is barricaded, locked down, National Guardsmen camping inside the Capitol building. Thousands more arriving as an impeachment and an inauguration intersect.
CBC's Susan Ormiston reporting from Washington, D.C. tonight. Turning our attention to the COVID-19 situation in our country now, case rates in Saskatchewan are up more than 100%. But despite that, officials and experts in that province aren't convinced restrictions need to be tighter. Bonnie Allen shows us why.
Of the more than 200 COVID deaths in Saskatchewan, most have happened in the past month. This funeral home has handled dozens of those services.
Virtually half of the people that we came into our care in December had died because of COVID.
Jeff Christensen says he has to carefully control 30 people inside this chapel, dictating exactly where they sit. If he doesn't, even the most diligent begin to bend the rules.
One of the things we find is it's hard for people not to visit with each other if we allow them to gather, even if they're distant. And as you watch people, that distance gets smaller and smaller and smaller as they talk.
A predicament facing the province, too.
We did expect that there would be a bump in numbers post the holiday season.
The government is sticking with its current rules for at least 2 more weeks, saying they work if followed. So indoor gatherings are restricted to immediate household members only. Schools are open, as are most businesses, with capacity limits.
We need universal compliance to see if this can turn around.
We don't need restrictions just for the sake of restrictions. We may not need in Saskatchewan just yet a lockdown similar to the one in Ontario and Quebec, but certainly I think we need to tweak our existing rules.
Vice Chief David Pratt believes he contracted the virus while eating out with a friend.
It was pretty rough.
Now his federation is calling on the government to shut down all bars.
Limiting those public spaces where people can gather is going to be key to bring these numbers down.
But with record cases now, more deaths are almost inevitable.
Our job is to just be there with them each step of that way to help them make meaning of the experience and find comfort in the midst of it.
A job more challenging than ever before. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Regina.
In just under 6 hours, a stay-at-home order will go into effect across Ontario. Only essential trips will be allowed, but as Chris Glover explains, what exactly classifies as essential and the punishment for rule breakers isn't 100% clear.
With just hours to go before a stay-at-home order takes effect, the people who will be doing the enforcement haven't even seen draft regulations.
Literally, the best information we have right now comes off a media release and a slide deck. And it simply is not the technical detail that we need.
A grocery store clerk is certainly essential, but the Premier today admits who is and is not required to be out of the home will be a judgment call.
I think we have the greatest police anywhere on earth, right here in Ontario. They're reasonable, they're thoughtful.
I think for Doug Ford to call our police force reasonable and thoughtful reflects how disconnected he is from his constituents.
Countless demonstrations across the GTA this year have exposed many people do not feel police serve the most marginalized in society.
What we know is that when police use so-called discretion, they always rule in favor of targeting Black and brown bodies, Indigenous communities, poor people.
Black Lives Matter co-founder Cyrus Marcus Ware says racialized and low-income people are also more likely to be forced to work on the front line.
This is not a moment to put our trust in the police to be able to make good decisions about who to stop and who not to stop.
The message is very, very clear. Stay home.
People will be caught up in this who just don't have a home.
This street pastor worries homeless shelters are already full and sometimes dangerous, and this will be an excuse to crack down on the tent encampments at Toronto parks.
Try to use these kind of things to say, you should get people out here writing tickets to people, which creates more complications.
Many in Toronto's medical community are demanding the government deal with structural issues, leaving marginalized people at greater risk of catching COVID by introducing social policies like paid sick days.
Stay-at-home orders basically provide carte blanche for the government to send the police into their communities. And the government is not listening to the structural factors which are making it impossible for people to stay at home.
And that, of course, is a call that medical professionals have been demanding for weeks, if not months now. But if we talk specifically about the stay-at-home order that comes into effect tomorrow, what we know is that the on-the-spot ticket is going to be worth $750. And if it goes through the courts, you could end up having to pay upwards of $100,000 and spend 1 year in jail. But the other important detail that we have for people tonight is that if you are essential and if you have to be out of the house, you don't need written documentation from an employer, for example. A verbal statement would be enough for the enforcement officers. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
And one province over, Quebec is still trying to grapple with enforcing its curfew properly. Now into its 5th night, some people are raising concerns about how police are enforcing it. Matt Demore shares the story of a Montreal woman who claims she was stopped and searched despite having the required documentation.
With her job clearing snow, Sarah Vresk is used to odd hours. She was on her way to work early Tuesday morning before curfew ended. 2 blocks later, Vresk was stopped by police.
I wasn't exactly surprised to be pulled over, but I was surprised about the way that the interaction went.
Vresk says she told the officer she was on her way to work and presented this curfew letter from her employer describing her as essential staff. The letter is based on the province's own template found online. But Vresk says that wasn't enough, and the officer asked to see what was in the lunch bag on her passenger seat.
And I kind of asked, well, you have my letter, isn't that enough? And he said, it's just a piece of paper. What if I don't believe you? I said he could call my employer, and he told me that he could write a ticket for me, and I could explain that to my employer.
Defense attorney Jeffrey Borrow says a police officer wouldn't have been justified in asking to search Vresk's bag.
It's none of his business what's in the bag beside her. He has no reasonable and probable grounds to search. Once the woman is stopped and she gives her explanation, that should end the situation.
I feel like the police officer really, really wanted to show his authority, that he was in charge. I felt helpless.
Eventually, Vresk says she gave in and showed the officer what was in the bag, a water bottle and some snacks.
He said, oh, that wasn't so bad, was it? And it wasn't, but that's not the point. There was no reason for him to see my bag.
Vresk was let go without a ticket. CBC reached out to Montreal police. A spokesperson wrote back that officers have to exercise good judgment and people need to justify being out past curfew. Vresk says she did everything she should have, and she's filed an online complaint against the officer. Matt Damour, CBC News, Montreal.
With only so much COVID-19 vaccine to go around, governments have stretched the time frame for a second dose. Why some are saying cutting corners is raising risks, coming up.
In British Columbia, young criminals are literally being sent into the wilderness in a bid to get them to change their ways. And just watch how they make them work. We join the young offenders now, jogging at the start of another hard working day at Porto Camp on Howe Sound.
Saturday, daybreak. For the boys here, it's time for a 2-mile run.
Hey, get away. Right to the edge, guys. Take a deep breath and go in.
After the run, a dip in Howe Sound, even if it is a frosty December morning. Because this is no holiday camp, and none of these boys are volunteers. The courts have ordered them to Porto, for crimes like breaking and entering, assault, and theft.
That was real good. Good run. Let's go before I get dressed up on the beach.
The program at Porto runs for 9 weekends. It's split into 3 stages. Each stage is 3 weekends long. Stage 1. The boys spend most of their time doing basic chores, sawing firewood, doing dishes, mopping floors. Stage 2. It's on to things like construction projects around the camp. Stage 3 is the wilderness phase of the program. For many of the boys, the course is not what they expected.
I didn't think it would be as hard as it was. I thought it'd be a lot easier. Didn't think it'd be this type of situation up in the mountains, but we do quite a bit of work and hard stuff, fix up the camp and that, and it's pretty hard.
Basically, we're trying to teach the kids to be successful, to have that feeling of success. If the kids can feel success, it has a tendency to change their attitudes. It has a great tendency to change their attitudes and ultimately their behavior.
Porto Camp has 3 rules. First, no swearing. The boys have to think before they speak. Second, if you smoke rolled cigarettes. Nothing at Porto comes easy. And the third rule, do as you're told. Now remember, these boys are here because they've made a habit of breaking rules. But at Porto, they quickly learn to toe the line.
Well, how many times have I told you to keep your hard hat on? Come on, let's go. Let's do some push-ups. Push-ups? Let's go. Come on, everybody down. Do some push-ups for Mike not wearing his hard hat here. Come on, Mike. Let's go, everybody down. 20 push-ups.
At Porto, it's a group effort. One guy follows up, that means that everybody follows up. So if everybody listens, watches, and hears, I mean, there'll be no problem here.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
He answered me that in Quebec, there's more cases than BC, so we are better here.
An emergency room doctor is calling on the BC government to restrict travel to Whistler from other provinces. Over the holidays, Dr. Annie Garreau says she saw a worrying number of patients from Quebec and Ontario. As visitors flock to the village, she and others are worried about the small community's healthcare system being overwhelmed. And BC health officials are reporting 12 more deaths from COVID-19, bringing our province's death toll to 1,031. There are 519 new cases of the virus, 360 people in hospital tonight, 76 of those patients in intensive care. And Interior Health announced a new COVID-19 outbreak at Caribou Memorial Hospital in Williams Lake. Churches in the township of Langley could lose their tax exemptions if they defy COVID-19 health orders. A councillor has put forward a motion that aims to stop places that have been fined during the pandemic from receiving a break on property taxes. As Isabelle Ragam reports, some leaders of churches that have been following the rules believe the proposal is justified.
No, take this church off the list. They don't get it this year.
Township of Langley Councillor Kim Richter wants churches that haven't obeyed COVID restrictions to lose their property tax exemption.
Jesus is the Lord.
She points to Langley's Riverside Cavalry Church, which has so far been fined $4,600 for violating BC's health order by holding in-person gatherings. Richter says the church has received tens of thousands of dollars in exemptions since 2014.
So these people can get a tax break, and at the same time, they're going out and endangering, by their actions, the lives of my family, my friends, and all the members of my community. It's just not right. It has to stop.
Marty Moore with the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms in Calgary has been reviewing BC's health orders. He tells CBC in a statement the motion violates faith communities' charter right of religious freedom.
I worry about that tainting overall perception of people who hold religious convictions.
Welcome to 2021.
Several leaders of churches in the Lower Mainland say the restrictions are fair and reasonable during a pandemic.
We're all being asked in some way to contribute to the common good. This is your part.
The churches who have been complaining that they're unfairly targeted have had far too loud a voice in our city and across this country. It is a small handful of people who are making that argument, and I think making very selfish decisions.
Both church leaders say while bans on gatherings are tough, they've found creative ways to connect with members, including live streaming services. Neither oppose the motion brought forward by Richter.
As far as I'm concerned, all of us need to do our part to help try to get the COVID numbers back down.
Township staff are looking at the legal language of the motion ahead of next week's council meeting.
This is a little thing that we can do at our level that sends a message and says, no, it's not okay.
CBC reached out to Riverside Cavalry Church for comment, but did not hear back. Isabel Regam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, today marks a month since the very first shipments of coronavirus vaccine landed in Canada. So far, more than 600,000 doses have been distributed to provinces and territories, while about 69% have actually been administered. And as Christine Birak reports, the plan for the second dose is fueling debate.
It's unleashed a raging vaccine debate between top doctors and leading scientists.
I would not be in favor of altering the regimes that have been approved by Health Canada.
Members of Canada's COVID vaccine task force insist for maximum protection from the virus, Canadians need 2 shots of Pfizer or Moderna's vaccine 3 and 4 weeks apart. Otherwise,
it would create a situation where people think they're immune, but they're not.
But Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization says if a vaccine runs low, delaying the second dose until further supplies become available, preferably within 42 days, is also acceptable, something Quebec is already doing.
We think that it will reduce the burden in terms of hospitalizations and death by giving 1 dose to as many people as possible.
The Quebec government is making decisions in panic management mode.
Joyce Shanks' 81-year-old father was supposed to get his second vaccine shot over a week ago. The Shanks and other families with loved ones living at this Montreal Senior Centre are now threatening the province with legal action.
We feel lied to, manipulated. There are many, many residents and people who feel that they're being used as guinea pigs.
And vaccine makers are listening to these debates.
They, of course, are concerned.
The minister in charge of securing vaccine shipments for Canada says delayed dosing has come up, but Pfizer and Moderna have both stated they want their vaccines used as directed.
The greater the provinces and territories do that, the stronger position that I have at the negotiating table in pushing for earlier and earlier deliveries.
The real issue is that with such new vaccines, there's limited data to go on. Vaccine makers say they can only recommend what they've studied. The rest is up to Health Canada. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
A survey done at one hospital is providing a snapshot of the high stress levels among healthcare workers, even before the pandemic hit. The survey shows nurses reporting the highest levels of burnout, and as Lauren Pelly explains, some are warning the pandemic is making it worse.
We fear for our own safety.
Whitby, Ontario resident Lamo Dolkar worked as a frontline nurse during the early months of the pandemic. She says it's always been a stressful job, but even more so now with the constant threat of COVID-19.
I personally, when I came home, I would be in the garage, stripping down, putting alcohol on myself, then going up and, having a shower before I could even hug my kids.
Canadian research suggests there were high rates of stress and burnout among healthcare workers even before the pandemic. Roughly 65% of physicians who responded to a hospital survey in 2018 and 2019 reported recent burnout. So did roughly 73% of allied health professionals like therapists, pharmacists, and social workers. Nurses had the highest reported rate at nearly 78%.
The levels of burnout were very high in my view.
This Toronto physician says his findings are from one facility but reflect a broader trend in healthcare.
If it was that bad before, what's it going to be now?
The research team hopes to remeasure burnout rates mid-pandemic, given the ongoing strain on Canada's healthcare system. Personal support workers, paramedics, and physicians are all among those now coming forward about worsening stress.
We really need to remember that physicians are people, which means that we've all been struggling with the same issues that the general public has been.
But for healthcare providers, that can also impact patient care.
If a nurse or a physician is burned out, it's much more likely that the patient they're taking care of is going to have some sort of adverse event.
It's just a vicious cycle that's ongoing, that's affecting patient safety, that's affecting our safety.
Dolkar says more supports are needed for healthcare workers since the stress of this pandemic isn't over yet. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Whitby, Ontario.
More dramatic airline cuts. This time it's Air Canada. Why they're abandoning small-town Canada, coming up. 6:44, a live look at BC Place Stadium in downtown Vancouver tonight. Well, a day after the win, some glorious sunshine on the coast today, but don't get too used to it. Johanna has the forecast next.
I feel good for my, God was good to me, you know, or is still good to me. At my age, I think I'm still drive a car, and I feel fine. I feel like 80. In 1942, I managed to get out of Germany and went to England, and there I joined the Polish army that was evacuated from Dunkirk. We went right through France, Belgium, Holland, Germany, and then my regiment became part of the British Army of the Rhine. And we stayed 2 years as an occupation unit in Germany. We had to find out more or less where the German army, the German soldiers are, where the German guns are, where the German tanks are. We had to find out. Most of the time we found out when they were shooting. So we had to be very, very careful.
Every year that Willie comes to talk to us, he leaves such an impression on the students. The connection he makes with them, the questions he answers, he's unfiltered, he's genuine, and he's a real true hero, and the students see that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Willie. Happy birthday to you.
It's really an experience to have a 100th birthday. You know, it's really very rare, and I hope and pray to look, and I'm looking forward really to my next birthday.
Hello everyone, hello racers. It is a beautiful day to race sled dogs. We will be doing the 20-miler race here on Race Lake, 2-day race. Thursday and Friday start time is 1 o'clock. 3, 2, 1, go! Off she goes for win bib number 1, Ruby Komatsu. 3, 2, 1, go! Off he goes, Richard Beck wearing bib number 2. Go! Off he goes, Trevor Lazat wearing bib number 3. 3, 2, 1, go! Off he goes, wearing bib number 4, Carson Green. 3, 2, 1, go! Off he goes, wearing bib number 5, James Beck wearing bib number 6, Go! Off he goes,
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Well, the new year is bringing new cuts to Air Canada. Among them, no service to Prince Rupert and Kamloops starting January 23rd. As Jacqueline Hansen reports, it's the airline's latest measures to cut costs after a dramatic drop in the number of passengers.
Air Canada says demand is down even further as international travel rules ramp up and cases of COVID-19 in Canada keep rising. The airline says it's slashing flight capacity by an additional 25% and cutting 1,700 jobs, plus 200 at its regional express carriers. Air Canada says we regret the impact these difficult decisions will have on our employees who have worked very hard during the pandemic. Those cuts mean the airline will be operating at just 20% of its pre-COVID capacity.
I've been studying companies in my strategy course for 30 plus years, and I cannot remember a company that has essentially downsized by 80%. For a company to reduce by that magnitude is just, it's unprecedented, and it's a staggering number.
Air Canada says bookings are down since Canada began requiring COVID-19 tests for all incoming international passengers. But the hit to business is reaching regions within Canada. The airline is suspending all flights to Yellowknife.
It's not completely unexpected with the amount of travel that's been reduced due to COVID, but not welcome news to start the year.
And service to Atlantic Canada is shrinking again, this time affecting Fredericton, New Brunswick, and Gander and Goose Bay in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's not the only airline trying to buy time. Porter Airlines grounded all flights when the pandemic first hit and just extended its suspension again until at least March 29th. The National Airlines Council of Canada issued a statement to the new federal transport minister saying aviation is in crisis. And without sector-specific support, it says Canadian airlines are losing market share to foreign competitors who have received strong sectoral support from their governments. And ramping up remote service again is expected to take much longer than shutting it down. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Johanna Wagstaffe back with us now. I think you had the sunglasses out today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I did. Yes, did you?
I did. Yeah, driving in, very nice. Seemed weird.
Well, totally weird. Yeah, I mean, the fashion accessory we forgot we had that's actually useful on a day like today and tomorrow. You can keep them out for one more day before we trade it in for our Gore-Tex onesies. Let me take you to the current temperatures right now. That's the other side of the story. Behind the cold front, a little chillier out there, still above our seasonal across most of the province. Definitely a long-term story I'm following, how mild it has been. 5 right now at YVR, but we are coming down to low single digits tonight. And there was a chill in the air this morning, a bit of a wind chill factor with those westerlies. Look at this gorgeous satellite shot of a low spinning off our coast. We are not getting directly hit with this system. It's going to be our Friday story. This one is, though, sliding up to central and northern coastal sections yet again. The storm train continues. Winds will be gusting well over 100 kilometers per hour overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning as the center of that low moves up towards the north coast. Here's our late evening forecast taking you through the overnight. We'll continue to see generally dry conditions starting you at 7 a.m. tomorrow. This is all high cloud that's showing up here. And in fact, I think we'll see some breaks through the day. Very similar Thursday to the Wednesday we've had, maybe not quite as much sunshine. And after 5 p.m., increasing cloud. It'll thicken up and lower down as the next round of showers moves in. At this point, I think the most models put it arriving after 9 p.m. tomorrow. So we get a dry and sunny day until then. And it's a bit of a blip for our Friday forecast. Bigger picture, there's that big, powerful storm moving up towards central coastal sections. We get that front sliding in tomorrow night into Friday morning. Hoping it moves through quickly enough that we get a bit of a break Friday evening because I do see more showers on tap for the weekend. Lots of sun across the province. Everyone feeling that chill tomorrow morning, those westerly winds, bringing these temperatures, making it feel more like 10 to 15 on the minus side with a wind chill, but lots of sunshine, as you can see as well. And all of these numbers above seasonal, even though we're behind the cold front. 8s right across the board. I don't think there's a name for that in a poker game, but there should be. Sunshine for first half of the day, as I mentioned. I do see some showers as we head into the weekend, but Mike, I'll be watching that sunshine on Sunday closely, see if I can expand that.
Good stuff. I'll keep my accessories handy, the sunglasses close at hand, the umbrella on standby. Thanks, Joe.
Good call. You're welcome.
Coming up, one Abbotsford teachers campaign to talk about racism and fight for equality and her students' artistic response. That's coming up.
I'm kind of a garbage human, man. I like it all, really. It's probably gonna have to be like the Reese's cupcakes, to be honest. They're like a crazy chocolate snack cupcake. Like you used to get those Hostess cupcakes back in the day that were like filled with the icing. Very similar, but they got like the peanut butter Reese's filling in there. They're pretty stupid. Yeah, they're pretty stupid. I'd say that's one of my go-tos for sure. So this is Underground Snacks. We're at 174 Water Street, St. John's. Basically, we import all kind of crazy candies and snacks and sodas that's otherwise kind of hard to put hands on in Canada, brother. You know, a lot of people are adventurous and trying almost anything just because you can't really get it otherwise. However, we definitely do have some heavy hitters for sure. We stock the Chubbies pretty large. Everybody remembers the Chubbies from growing up and getting that mouthful or two of soda. They're pretty hard, man. A lot of people kind of get down on the Fagos here. They're more of like an American soda that we stock pretty heavily. Besides that, boys, I think it's kind of a big array of products that people enjoy. Everybody got different taste buds and everybody kind of got their own niche as far as candy goes. So to pinpoint one or two individual products that hit harder than others is kind of tough, but Flies likes the sodas for sure.
It literally just started with an idea. I was, literally at home one night. Once I came up with the Instagram name, and I started posting, some photos that I'm gonna, the product that I'm getting in, and literally, I will never forget. Like that night, I actually had people engaging right away. Just placed a little order, and once it arrived, it sold like instantly, honestly. So I just got more and kind of, it snowballed, to what it is today. I'm in Halifax right now, actually. We're actually at the Halifax store right now. And then, of course, we have Vince at our Newfoundland store. He's actually from the West Coast in Newfoundland, so it's great that he's there. And he's actually, the guy that helped us, with our hiring and everything like that.
It's cool to see everybody's nostalgia go off on a certain product that might not even mean anything to you, right? But they might have been 5 years old and had this candy back home growing up, and it's like, geez. It's cool to see, man. It's pretty cool to see. Everybody's different. What everybody loves is different, man. It's cool to see everyone come together over candy.
Boom.
Boom, dude. Sick.
Well, when an Abbotsford teacher first met her grade 6 class back in September, she knew she wanted to do an anti-racism project with them.
So she came up with the Equity Backpack, a project where students created personalized bags filled with art and journal entries centered on inclusion and equality. Here's a look now at what some of the students put in their backpacks.
This is one of the things inside my backpack. It's two hands making a heart. Some of the words that make the hands are character, family, humor, culture, identity, and knowledge.
kids have made a promise to themselves and to the community in ways that they could stand up for others. They could, be courageous, take risks in life, and also stay true to themselves and their identity.
Yeah, the motivation for that coming from her own sons who faced racism in their schools. So that's a good idea. Really good.
Yeah, unique way to talk about an important topic. I hope it goes cross province.
Yeah, why not? Backpacks. Every kid's got one, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. You can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC. Dan Burrett is here at 11 after the National. Joe and I back here tomorrow night. Have a good night.
Good night.